Hello, this first PowerPoint is an introduction to EDBL 3332, Foundations of Bilingual Education. In the 1974 Lau versus Nichols decision, the United States Supreme Court determined that one type of national origin discrimination is that based on a person's inability to speak, read, write, or understand English. The acronym LEP is used to describe a person who does not speak English as a primary language and has limited ability to read, speak, write, or understand English. Thus, they are said to be limited English proficient. The limited English proficient label is controversial because some believe that it focuses on what English learners are unable to do rather than on what they are learning to do. Therefore, other labels are used in literature relating to these particular types of students. Some of these include the language minority students, culturally and linguistically diverse students or CLD students, English language learners or ELLs or English learners, ELs, or heritage language speakers. Garcia identifies the following characteristics typically used to identify an English learner. The process for identifying LEP students begins at the beginning of the school year when parents register their students and fill out a home language survey. During this time, administrators look for students who meet one of the following conditions: whether or not the student was born outside of the U.S. or whose native language is not English, whether the student comes from an environment where a language other than English is dominant, whether or not the student is American Indian, Alaskan Native, or comes from an environment where a language other than English has had a significant impact on his or her English proficiency, or whether or not the student has difficulty speaking, reading, writing, or understanding the English language. Due to the urgent need to serve the large population of LEP children, it was necessary that federal law mandated affirmative steps to help overcome the language barriers that block full access to their curriculum. School must not only teach English to LEP students, but do so in a way that minimizes the disruption of their academic growth. Programs for English learners must make school comprehensible. This order was given by President Bill Clinton on August 11, 2000. It was designed to improve access to federally conducted and federally assisted programs and activities for LEP persons. Federal agencies were asked to develop and implement a system to provide LEP persons access to services. Who must comply with the LEP executive order? This executive order applied to all programs and operations that receive federal funds or assistance at a state, local, or private entity. Failure to comply may be national origin discrimination under Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. In spite of the mandate, there were still significant discrepancies in the ELL's academic achievement compared to those of their English speaker peers. Although there is great variation depending on students' background and schooling opportunities, most LEP students do not achieve well academically, and most are at risk of failure in school. The LEP student's success in school hinges upon gaining access to effective second language learning opportunities and to full educational programs. As a result of these academic achievement gaps between the LEP and the English proficient students and lack of effective bilingual programs, the federal government implemented the famous No Child Left Behind Act, which ensures that every child will be tested in reading and math, including those learning English, and all ELLs will be tested annually to measure how well they are learning English. States and schools are held accountable for the success of all students' academic achievement. You will learn more about the No Child Left Behind Act later on in this course. Now let's take a look at the definition of an immigrant student. Immigration has reached its highest level in U.S. history. According to the Urban Institute, an estimate of 14 million immigrants are reported to have arrived in the 1990s legally or otherwise. Over 90% came from non-English speaking countries. The immigrant influx has accounted for more than half of the nation's population growth and 1/3 of school enrollment growth. According to the 2000 census, 1 in 5 students in U.S. elementary and secondary schools is now an immigrant or child of immigrants. So the definition of an immigrant student is an individual who are aged 3 to 21, they're not born in any state and not in the United States and have not been attending one or more schools in any or more states for more than 3 full academic years. The following are some statistics reported by the Times fall of 2007 on EOL population. It is important to note that census statistics have some limitations. They are based on self-reports about languages spoken and level of English proficiency respondents who lack expertise in such matters. The data collected in this way is less reliable than those based on objective assessments. Although the census questions are now translated in different languages, they still do not provide an explanation for questions that people find confusing. This is important to keep in mind, since most of the federal government's programs are based on the census statistics. Here are some statistics regarding the EOL special language programs. As you can see in the bottom, it's interesting, there's 49,071 parent denials. And this just means that parents denied their English language learner child access to the programs and language support that is necessary for their academic growth. And so that these childs are put into mainstream classes without any type of native language support. So without the accommodations of bilingual or ESL instructions, the consequences for second language learners can be severe. Federal and state policy makers rely on two data sources in counting LEP students. First, the responses to the census questions, and second, the actual enrollment figures provided each year by states and school districts. What is an ESL? ESL programs, or ESL pull-out, as they are commonly referred to, were developed as a way to meet the needs of EOLs. This program provides support in the student's native language for the purpose of learning English. The students basically are literally pulled out of the mainstream classroom for some kind of small group or tutoring in the second language. And the teacher's really not required to know the student's native language. They just use certain strategies and techniques to help the EOL learn English. The ESL program's objective is just to help the EOL acquire English skills as soon as possible. Although EOLs receive support in their native language, the ESL programs have been identified by researchers as the least effective in helping EOLs become proficient in English. Bilingual education programs, on the other hand, are more effective in helping an EOL become proficient in English. This all depends, however, on the quality of the bilingual program and the expertise of the teacher. School districts in Texas with a high percent of LEP students are required to provide primary language instruction. This gives the student a greater advantage in closing the achievement gap. There are different bilingual education programs. According to researchers, some are more effective than others. So you will learn a little bit more about each one later on in this course. Keep in mind that in order to receive funding to support these programs, the federal government issues Title III funds. Section 3302 of Title III requires parent notification no later than 30 days after the beginning of the school year. The requirements are specified in this slide. Please take a few minutes to read what these notification requirements are. This concludes our first PowerPoint slide on the Introduction to Bilingual Education.